Yo, 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 welcome to Hard Pass. I am your host, Jacques Slade. Today on the show, we've got a trio of hard passes, so let's get right into it. And obviously, I'm not in my home studio. I'm out in Ohio working with the PGA Tour, but we'll talk about that later. Let's start off with beef. Last week, we jokingly dedicated a hard pass to Nice Kicks for their ranking of the greatest Nike KD sneakers of all time. Now, before anybody gets all worked up about it and declares this a sneaker blog war like we're back in the early 2010s or something, it's all in good fun and an excuse to make a list in light of not having an actual hard pass. Well, this week, we've got a little more substantive stuff to talk about, but not before we fire a shot at another outlet, our good buddies over at Complex Sneakers. Shout out to Joe, Brendan, and Welty. On the most recent episode of their podcast, they did a tier ranking of the greatest Air Jordans of all time. Now, I'm not going to spoil what they chose. You have to watch the episode, but for our version, we're going to escalate things and rank all the Jordans and come up with a special S tier. Why? Because let's be real here. There's never going to be a canonical GOAT Air Jordan. Depending on what era and year, Nike's handling of a particular model, whether it be new colorways, re-released OGs, or collabs, can sway the opinion of what the snooker community thinks. What we're going to do instead is list the only viable candidates for that title because, again, let's be honest, no Air Jordans past the 14, with the exception of maybe one, will ever ingrain themselves in the consciousness of the people so much that they become the GOAT Jordan. So let's start with what Co-Writer is calling the garbage tier. It's one shoe, and it's definitely not what you think it is. Now, in his opinion, this is not only the worst Air Jordan ever made, but the worst sneaker ever made. And you know what? I'm gonna allow it. Why? Because sometime in the future, maybe sooner than you think, Co-Writer is going to have to defend this take on this channel, and it's going to be hilarious to see him justify his madness. And when he does, I'm just going to sit back with my Wolverine popcorn bucket and watch with a smile on my face. You ready? Here it goes. Air Jordan 13. I cannot wait for him to justify this. Anyways, back to our regularly scheduled tier list. Here's the C tier, aka Jordans that have no chance of ever being considered the greatest ever. Now, we could have been super granular and used F ranks and D ranks, but I think we can all thank Co-Writer for ruining that fun with his wild take about the 13s. I don't want any other Air Jordans to suffer his wrath, so we're going to just put them here in a safe space where he can't hurt them. So let's start off with the Air Jordan 39, the 38, the 37, the 36, and as you guessed it, the 35, the 34, the 33, the 32, the 31, and the 30. But then we're going to skip to the ones for some reason that are named after years, the 2012, 2011, 2010, and then the 2009. Then you obviously have to go to the 22, the 21, 19, 18, the 17, yes, the one that just released, the 16, and the 15. Okay, so now we've got the B tier of Jordan. Now these rank above the C tier because they have dedicated fandoms in the sneaker community. While nobody would consider them the greatest Jordans ever made, they are top 5 on some lists, and you know what? I'm not mad at that. So we have the Air Jordan 29, which is one of my personal favorites, the Air Jordan 28, Air Jordan 23, the Air Jordan 20, the Air Jordan 14, the Air Jordan 10, the Air Jordan 9, and the Air Jordan 8, and the Air Jordan 7. Then we have the A tier Jordans. They're among the best of the best, the cream of the crop. No notes. These Jordans are perfect in the eyes of the hard pass crew. But when hard cuts had to be made, these were the ones that had to stay just outside of the Champions League. When you think about Michael Jordan and the Air Jordans that he made history in, these are not the ones you think about first. And that's not to say that they don't have iconic moments, killer colorways, and legendary collabs, because they do. But you can't put these J's over any of the ones that made our final tier. Got it? Okay, so that's the Air Jordan 12, the Air Jordan 5, and the Air Jordan 2. Okay, now we're in the S rank territory. Each of these Jordans can make a valid argument for being the most whatever title you want to give it. Most legendary, most iconic, most popular, most licked by Fat Joe. This is it. And like I said, depending on when you're forced to pick one of these as the GOAT, any of these 5 could take the championship belt. In '84, it would have been the Air Jordan 1 High by default. In '88, Tinker Hatfield's Air Jordan 3 design kept Michael Jordan from leaving Nike. That alone makes the threes a big deal. But then it was followed up by the Air Jordan 4, also kind of a big deal. Now, you might be wondering why we put the Air Jordan 6 on here. Well, because until recently, Jordan Brand did a really good job in restraining themselves with the 6. The same goes for the 11, the undisputed champion between 96 and 2015. What happened in 2015 to break the 11's dominance, you might ask? The shattered backboard 1 High. Now, you could argue that the 1 High's resurgence happened when they brought back the Nike Air, but the shattered backboards was really the sneaker that changed the trajectory of Jordans, and it's only now that we're getting out of it. And what's the Jordan that's taking its place? The 1 Lows, of course. And we can thank Travis Scott for that. And also our guy Welty, who appears to be pushing a 1 Low agenda. So we have the Air Jordan 11, the Air Jordan 6, the Air Jordan 4, the Air Jordan 3, and of course, the Air Jordan 1. So what I want you guys to do, let us know what you think the best Jordan ever made is in the comments below. And did we get our rankings right? All right, let's move on to the pick of the week. We have the Nike Air DT Max 96 Coach Prime. This is on June 14th for $170. This is one of Deion's most iconic sneakers, and it's returning with the full Deion branding. Even though it's an OG colorway, it matches up with his current team of Colorado, so fans of the Buffaloes can scoop it up. The biggest update to the sneaker, though, is that the Coach Prime logo can be found on the pull tab. Here's hoping that we get a retro of the Diamond Turf 2s in the 49ers colors. Yeah, you get it. All right, let's get back to the hard passes. Our second hard pass of the week goes to the babying of Caitlin Clark. Like, what are we doing here? I thought people loved the NBA of old, when Michael Jordan was allegedly frozen out of the NBA All-Star game, or when the New York Knicks and Miami Heat would struggle to get 70 points in 4 quarters, or when Dennis Rodman, he shoved Scottie Pippen into the stands after he got beat on a drive to the basket. That's what we want, right? There's a video with 6.6 million views of Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal praising Nikola Jokic for hitting Markieff Morris from behind after Morris intentionally hit him first. We supposedly love this stuff. Nobody wants to watch analytic-driven hoops or games that are reduced to who shot more threes, right? Nah. They want grimy, smash-mouth basketball with loads of drama and pettiness galore. I mean, a lot of people say that, but it turns out when they actually see that physicality and pettiness play out in real time in the WNBA, them pearls are being clutched like they've never been clutched before. To quote Stephen A, wow. So, by the time you watch this, it will have been a little over a week since the Chicago Sky's Kennedy Carter shoulder-checked Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark after they got into it earlier in the game. There was some trash talking and physical play, and Carter had enough. Clark got knocked to the ground, possibly selling the fall a little bit harder than warranted, but whatever. That's the game. Welcome to the league, Rook. Angel Reese was almost taken out by Alyssa Thomas a few days prior, and I'm sure Cameron Brink is going to get hers at some point. Like, this is what happens when you're new. It's part of the process. We wouldn't tolerate this in the workplace or in school or anywhere else in real life, but in sports, we crave this. We eat this up. Hell, we called this on the show when Diana Taurasi was talking smack about this new class. Clark in particular, before they even got drafted. We expected this. These rookies were going to get knocked down, and then we were going to see if they had what it took to get back up. But apparently, people you think would know better weren't ready for the white girl from Iowa to be treated like everybody else. Look, we've seen the takes from Stephen A. and LeBron James and Charles Barkley, who loved it when it was Joker doing the retaliation, along with the clowns with podcasts and the concern trolls on social media. That was our first problem. We should have been listening to the women and men who have been covering the W and know this is just business as usual, like WNBA legend Rebecca Lobo and analyst Monica McNutt, who elicited the wow response from Stephen A. It's kind of disappointing because, you know, Stephen A., Chuck, and the rest would have totally different responses if it was a white boy from Duke getting the same treatment in the NBA. They would be like, yeah, this is what's supposed to happen. He should get knocked on his ass and bullied because we need to see if he's got that dog in him. Funny enough, we might see that flip-flop as soon as next year if Cooper Flagg really is as good as advertised. Assuming LeBron is still playing the season after next, I wonder if he's gonna take it easy on Flag if he comes into the league with a national championship and a fat rookie sneaker deal. Or will he and every other veteran in the league try to knock him down a peg or 10? We all know what the answer is. If Anthony Edwards really is the next king of petty, and judging from that Adidas commercial with the receipts, he might just be, he's going to look at Flag the same way MJ and Scottie looked at Tony Kukoc in 1992. Or Kobe when he saw how tall Yao Ming was. And guess what? Kukoc became a valuable player on 3 championship teams, and Yao Ming was a multiple-time All-Star and Hall of Famer. You take your lumps and get on with it. I thought y'all lived for those proving ground moments, man. The entire former Hooper with the podcast ecosystem revolves around talking about welcome to the league moments and recalling who was the first player to bust your ass. And that's why it's a bummer these talking heads feel the need to protect Clark. Like, I'm not here to pitch you my WNBA bona fides because I honestly didn't watch the product like I do the NBA until recently. Shout out to the late Kobe Bryant for pushing the agenda forward with Sabrina Ionescu and Joelle Lloyd. But even I knew enough about the league and sports in general to know that the humbling of these rookies was going to happen. I just thought we were all in agreement that it was going to be fun to see if these kids had what it took. But I guess not. And yes, I get it. These rookies are the W's cash cow, blah, blah, blah. You know what would be worse? If these vets let the kids cook and roll the red carpet out for them like some are saying they should. It would also be a very bad look for Clark or Reese or Brink if there's evidence of the WNBA giving them preferential treatment on the court. These vets aren't living under a rock. They understand these young bloods' popularity is a huge boost to their bottom line. But that doesn't mean they should make it easy on them. If the league really was full of alleged jealous players who want to kick her out, would Clark have become the fastest player to get to 100 points and 50 assists while winning Rookie of the Month? Clark is doing just fine. She's just not at the level she was in college yet. Could a line be crossed in the future? Sure, but we aren't there. Maybe, just maybe, they're playing hard. We wouldn't want to find out that NBA players were taking it easy on Victor Wembanyama last season, so why change the sentiment for someone like Clark? Just because the gender flipped and the skin tone changed? If we find out that Clark is not built for this and crumbles under the pressure, life goes on. But if this infantilization continues and she gets it in her head that she can just Karen her way to greatness, that's also bad. No one wins if Caitlin turns into Karen. But I don't think we have to worry about Karen Clark because Caitlin Clark ain't no punk. She don't need your coddling. Yes, she's a white girl from Iowa who shoots logo threes and became America's sweetheart. You know who else shot logo threes and became America's sweetheart? Steph Curry. And he's a Hall of Fame agitator on the court. Like, a big reason Steph became the megastar that he is because he's not built like LeBron. Instead, he dominated the game with his shooting ability. It was easier to relate to Curry. At the same time, did you not see the night-night gesture when he beat the Boston Celtics? Good times. That's when he won his 4th championship. That's peak petty. Clark does like that all the time. She doesn't need the ESPN machine or Charles Barkley protecting her. Let her take her lumps and let's see what she's made of. The hope should be that she wants to be like Mike. Take these hard hits and petty remarks personally, in private. What I mean by that is she needs to maintain that America's sweetheart image so that more eyeballs and more money comes to the W. But become a stone cold killer on the court. Be so good that next time a Kennedy Carter type tries her, a teammate of hers will stop her not because she's a golden goose, but because she will take any slight, real or perceived, and use that as motivation to score 50. Or sign the WNBA equivalent of Charles Oakley. Either one. Fans who really thought that Clark was just going to do the Tony Yayo, John Cena, you can't see me to the best female players in the world are having a moment and they don't know how to act. But we've seen this story before. Now it's Clark's turn to show us if she's got that dog in her. Because if she overcomes this, it's going to be the best case scenario for everybody involved. And it'll make for more amazing content when she retires and tells these stories on her own podcast. If not, well, there's Angel Reese and Cameron Brink ready to take that spot of young phenom. And if they can't do it, we've got Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins still in college. Or, we just give A'ja Wilson, who of course has a signature shoe, all the respect and attention she rightly deserves. Caitlyn ain't the only star we're here for. Pat McAfee, aka guy who obviously never saw the Key and Peele sketch. Let the women who played the game and covered the game before us, bandwagon folk, jumped on, tell us if these vets are being hard on these rookies. If they say they are, they are. If they're not, they're not. And finally, our last hard pass of the day goes to Nike for gutting their DNA. Last week, it was reported that as part of Nike's company-wide restructuring, aka layoffs, they were cutting the Department of Nike Archives team in half. Conceived in 2006, the department was responsible for accumulating, preserving, cataloging, and archiving products, documents, and other precious artifacts that have defined the brand since its inception. When you see high-res pictures of forgotten gems and relics of Nike's past on features on the Sneakers app or actual sneakers, prototypes, and other swoosh memorabilia on displays and activations throughout the world, chances are those were borrowed from the DNA team. When Jordan Brand brings back a particular Air Jordan and they need reference material, they turn to DNA. Well, they also turn to old sneaker collectors, but we'll talk about that some other time. Anyways, you would think that a company that is beholden as Nike to their past would probably want a big team of archivists who know the ins and outs of their history. And my guess is they do understand how important history is, just, not at the expense of the stock price. Nothing gets in the way of capitalism and the pursuit of infinite growth, y'all. When Co-Writer first heard about this news, it struck a nerve with him. How can Nike be so nonchalant with their preservation efforts that they think that they can get by with a smaller team? It's the same frustration he has with the video game industry and the big companies who piss away their extensive back catalogs and let them lay in limbo because there's supposedly no money to be made. Like, these same companies who complain about piracy are the same ones who won't make their classics available to devs who might have a good idea to revive an iconic LP out of fear that they will look bad. And then there's the worst case scenario, when some of these games are lost to time because no one bothered to preserve the game's code or allowed licenses to lapse into limbo. And don't even get him started on defunct MMOs. He never played The Matrix Online, but it's sad that he doesn't have the option to because the server shut down over a decade ago. Like, they killed Morpheus in that game. For fans of that series, the only way they could ever go back to that moment is through a YouTube video. And let's be real, it's not the same. Look, I'm not saying that John Donahoe and every other CEO needs to take a cue from the late Satoru Iwata, former CEO of Nintendo, who famously cut his salary in order to preserve jobs at the company after the failure of the Wii U. But for all its faults, Nintendo makes money like no one else in the video game industry because their teams can weather tough times and grow from mistakes. All of these other companies that have laid off thousands of employees over the past several months, including Nike, are under the assumption that they can just keep cutting and cutting to please shareholders, oblivious to the reality that these layoffs will result in crappier products. I just wonder when that tipping point is, because it has to be coming sooner than later. My heart goes out to the people at Nike, and I hope those affected land on their feet at the next thing. Oh, and one last hard pass to the Boston Celtics. Doing an NBA Finals preview wouldn't make sense at this point, but just so Dallas knows, we Laker fans are all rooting for you. All right, that's going to do it for the show today. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching. I am Jacques Slade, and today we actually have something special for you. We got a ton of voicemails this week, but 3 in particular really stood out. So for the first time ever, we've got not 1, not 2, but 3 voicemails to play today. All right, let's start with this one about Yeezys.
Hey, Jacques, it's Stephen Smith here. No, not that Stephen Smith. The other one, the one that lives in Dubai that just posted a video of the half-price Yeezys at the outlet store over here. It went kind of viral. Just my thoughts on the process. If it's a good natural thing that the Yeezys are now half-price, I think more product going that way as well. Hopefully everybody got a pair that could get a pair, and hopefully they dropped over there in the USA as well. But for now, here in Dubai, there's half-price Yeezys. Hope you get a pair if you can. All right, be sure to follow me, Notudon, Notudon, on Instagram. Peace. Bye.
And then this one, that's a little touching.
This is not your typical hard pass. It's actually a shout out for my fiance, Joe. We watch your show all the time, and especially if Kobe or Donovan Mitchell are mentioned in the title. We love your show. Joe, I love you so much. I cannot wait to marry you, and I vow to have at least 6 sneaker apps on every single device I own until the end of time. I love you.
And finally, this one.
Hey, Jock Slade, I just wanted to say I battle mental issues and all kinds of stuff, including schizophrenia, and I watch your show to get my mind off things, and I really appreciate the fact that you said I'm enough, just so that you know. I really, really appreciated that. I needed that tonight. So keep it up. You always say something inspiring.
It puts a lot of things into perspective for us. So if you'd like to possibly be featured in a future episode, call us at 818-493-9325. Leave a short message, your socials if you want, no more than 30 seconds. All right, I'll see you next week. Peace. Oh, also, go Mavericks.